Hello, NASCAR fans. We're not going to have any sound effects this week because everybody that I'm working with is on the road except me. I'm in this kind of half-ass studio that has no control room, and Steve, who usually has the big studio in a control room, sitting in a car somewhere in Minnesota with the windows rolled up because there's a bee's nest outside his window. Hey, Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm doing
How's your life?
Actually, I'm in South Beloit, Illinois.
It would only be Beloit in the United States. It'd be Belvoir or something in Canada.
Exactly. It'd be Belvoir, Illinois.
I always thought it was Beloit.
Beloit? There, it could be Beloit, yeah.
Yeah, if you were in Texas, it'd be Beloit, dude.
And well, actually in Canada it might be Beloit too, since Detroit is Detroit, whatever. So anyway, enough of that hockey stuff. Let's. Dan Beaver's down in Central Texas with no air conditioning as well. I got the best seat in the house today, man. Welcome to this edition, our live edition of the NASCAR on Pit Row Hangout. I'm Charlie Turner. You just saw my friends Steve Runkowitz and Dan Beaver. Hey, guys.
Hey.
So tell us all about this. This race this past weekend was at Pocono Raceway, and it was named in honor of Steve Runkowitz, the Bowling.com 400. For those of you who don't know, Steve is a very well-versed sports announcer, and one of his specialties here in the Great North Midwest is he's a bowling. What do you call it? Announcer, color man, expert.
No, if there is
it can't be play-by-play. Is it frame by frame?
Ball by ball. Yeah, it can't be play-by-play. It's got to be ball by ball.
Oh, I like that.
The play-by-play would be, he rolled it again, and it hit some pins.
We try to make it a little more exciting than that. But not to digress too far from this show, I will tell you this. My 90-year-old father has never really ever acknowledged that I've ever done anything in the media. I can do baseball games, I can do anything, but it wasn't until I started doing bowling that my father said, yeah, that's my son. He's on television. He does bowling.
Because even though your name is Steve Runkowitz, his is Runkevich.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. And famous bowlers, the Runkevich family here in Rossford, Ohio. So anyway, let's get back to the NASCAR stuff. We've had enough of this bowling thing. If we run out of time, we could always kill it with that. The earth shook. Dale Earnhardt Jr. won again. Swept the races at Pocono, which I think is that's telling of what kind of car he's got this year. Any surprises there? I mean, he certainly wasn't the dominant car all day. That was mostly Jeff Gordon and Kurt Busch, but Gordon was there when it counted, or Jr. was there when it counted.
Yeah.
Yeah. They got the strategy right, and I think that was one of the last pieces of the puzzle that they needed to get in their program this year. They're hitting on all cylinders. You kind of hate to see that with Letarte leaving at the end of the year. This finally could be what makes Earnhardt consistently relevant. But yeah, enjoy it while you can.
Maybe they can get him back. You think Mr. Hendrick would throw enough money at Steve Letarte to keep him there?
I think he's got enough money to throw and try to keep him there. I'm not sure Letarte's all that interested. So
I would have had to think that money was already thrown and rejected, most likely. That from all intents, the things that you hear, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is not the easiest guy to work with, and Steve Letarte has spent, not necessarily so much this year, but previous years, has spent an awful lot of his time and energy being the cheerleader for Dale Earnhardt Jr., and I think it just has taken its toll on him. And I don't think there's not enough money in the world to keep Steve Letarte there if he doesn't want to be. He's looking at the holy grail of TV as, hey, it's got to be a lot easier than keeping Junior up all the time.
You have to wonder if once Letarte gets to TV, if we'll hear any stories about Junior. I doubt it, but it would be nice to think that maybe somebody would come out of that sport and be a journalist with some insider info.
I think the closest thing you have to that was Jade Gerst with the book that he wrote. How long ago was that already, Charlie? It was almost 10 years ago, wasn't it? Or more?
More than that, yeah.
Yeah, something like Seeing Red or something. Wasn't that the name of the...
Yeah, I think that wasn't it the year after Senior died or something that he followed Junior around the whole year. So that was like 2001. So obviously that's 15 years ago.
We actually followed him that year. That was the book
Yeah.
was about that year, and I think the book came out a couple years after that. So it's been a while since it was out. We actually had Jade on the show right after he published the book, and he graciously sent us a couple copies. A good book. It was a good read. But it did make it obvious. Of course, Junior was a lot younger when that book was written. He was a very young man at that time, and you would think some things have changed for him.
Well, it's
maturity-wise and such.
It's good for the sport. If you have Dale Earnhardt Jr., you have Jeff Gordon in the chase, Keselowski in the chase. I think you got a pretty good cast of characters, at least at this point. Even if nobody else gets in, you've got a pretty good cast of characters.
Yeah, and that leads to something that Dan and I were talking about, and we want to get into in this show too. One of the guys who had a nice finish in the race was Greg Biffle. Ended up 5th in the race. Kind of rolled the dice on a pit stop and a fuel call at the end. And Dan and I speculated about how would you put it, Dan? How Jack Roush is going to allocate resources going into and through the chase?
Yeah, I think you've at least got to watch or question the allocation resource management between that 16 and 99 team over the next 5 races or so. The fact that Biffle was willing to roll the dice at the end, given their position in the point standings, how much better Biffle seemed overall during the race than Edwards until that 13 car crash that affected Edwards. I'm wondering if Jack Roush wouldn't be much happier if he had Biffle in the chase, so that he didn't have to back Edwards 100% for those final 10 races, get his championship with Biffle, and let Edwards go to the evil empire, as he described it when Kenseth left to go to that same empire.
What do you think, Steve?
My personal feeling is that Jack Roush would do just about anything to have a championship, and I don't think he's too terribly particular who brings him that championship, even if it is somebody who is going to the evil empire at the end of the year. Because if he doesn't get it this year, I think the chance of him getting it most likely diminish over the next couple of years, even though he does have Biffle.
Let me clarify some of that too. I don't think that if he would continue to do that in the chase if Edwards was the only egg in his basket. But I think he would like to have that second egg in the basket, not only because it doubles his chances to win the chase, but because if Biffle could get it, it would keep Edwards from getting it. So I think the next 5 races are going to be interesting to watch what happens with Edwards. If he's the only one in the chase, though, I think all those concerns go completely out of the window. That's just speculation, too, on my part.
Well, I think you have to look at this year as this year, and going forward is not going to be as productive as what this year is, obviously. Ricky the lineup of Ricky Stenhouse, Trevor Bayne, and Greg Biffle does not exactly, doesn't sound like the Detroit Tigers starting rotation to me,
No, it doesn't, and that's surprising to me. He being Jack Roush, is definitely lacking star power there, and that's one of the things for many years he had a star or two in that lineup, usually more than one. But who's out there? I mean, who's out there to even consider getting?
Well, I think the big crop of young guns that we've talked about are pretty much taken up. I don't see anybody immediately on the cusp looking for a Cup ride that's going to be another, stud. But it's also interesting when you look at the story that Mark Martin is coming back into the fold as a driving coach. Obviously, Jack Roush figures that his 2 youngsters need some sort of a coach, and I don't think there was anybody there to coach them. Do you see Greg Biffle as the coaching type? No. Did you see Carl Edwards as a coaching type? No. Even Kenseth, I don't think any of the people that he had there were the mentor type drivers that he needed to continue, getting that stable to where it needed to be, and that's why Mark Martin's coming back as the driving coach.
Yeah, but I can see Martin coming in. I can see hiring a driving coach, but I don't see a mentor at anybody's team. Who's the mentor? Is Jeff Gordon a mentor at Hendrick Motorsports? I doubt it.
Well, they don't need it. They've got
no,
drivers.
Actually, they don't. But anywhere is there a team that has maybe nobody has a need for it except Roush, but
I think McMurray's filling that role at Chip Ganassi, and I think it's improved his results by doing so. Once you pulled Juan Pablo out of that mix and put Kyle Larson in, both of their results went up. And I think part of that's because McMurray got the chance to be the man of the house. And it sounds like, at least at the beginning of the season, we don't hear about it as much about it now, that he really had an impact on Larson, and I think that elevated both of their games.
Well, it helps it helps if you're the mentor or teacher to have a brilliant student.
Yeah, you look a lot better.
Kyle Larson's pretty brilliant.
He is, but I think you've got to give McMurray some credit for what's going on in that organization, and that pays off the point that you asked. At Richard Childress, I think you probably see some of that going on, maybe collectively with Newman and Menard helping Dillon. So we've got so many rookies, and then you get down to that next level of rookies, and you've got 2 or 3 at a team, like at BK Racing, and you're not getting it there. But there aren't that many opportunities. Most of the drivers at the Cup level don't need a lot of instruction. So the few that there are actually stand out.
Well, let me ask a question. I think, to me, the whole announcement of Mark Martin being this driver coach, what does that job pay? I mean, seriously, what can that job pay to where there's got to be more to it than that? I mean, there's just Mark Martin can't need a lot of money, okay? He can't be doing this for the money unless there's a lot of it involved. And I can't believe he would commit to, something that was justified the announcement that was made last week, unless there was a lot to it. So I think, I mean, is it going to be one of those? Is he the heir apparent to Jack Roush? How old is Jack? Jack may not want to do this forever.
Well, the question becomes, how much was he paid to be Danica's driver's coach? I would think that to leave that job, you'd have to get a raise, wouldn't you?
Well, my thinking there is if your resume included being Danica's stock car coach, why would you get hired again?
Well, you can't get blood out of a turnip, as the old saying goes. So.
Or something like that.
Yeah, there's X amount of talent. If she doesn't have it, then that's what it is.
You used a very polite metaphor there. There could have been worse things you used there. So I'm glad you did that.
And Mark may just want to stay involved with the sport. He doesn't want to drive any longer. This gets him to the track, gets him. Might see him in the broadcast booth here before too terribly long. By the fact that
have to get him a booster. They'd have to get him a booster chair, but.
I think what you said, Charlie, may have a lot of credit. I mean, he may be the guy that they're looking to bring in to run that organization. I don't know if he has the ability to do it. I don't know how much Jack Roush is involved on a day-to-day basis of making decisions on those 3 race teams, but Mark Martin could be the next front man for Roush, Fenway, Martin Racing.
Well, the reason I bring it up, and the reason I think it's just purely speculation, is that Mark has that long ago deep immersion in what Jack Roush is all about as someone who runs race teams. I mean, back to the Trans Am days and stuff like that. And so he understands it. I think Jack realizes that Mark maybe has a better grip on what Roush wants going forward, and could carry his legacy forward if he's choosing to to back out a bit. Steve just had some product placement there. Was that Pepsi or Coke?
Pepsi, of course.
Okay.
Well,
I think there's some possibilities there, but who knows?
Mark had an ownership stake in his team before he left Roush Fenway. That was fairly well publicized that Jack had to buy him out or give him something for the. It was like the Hendrick Gordon alliance with Jimmy Johnson and with Gordon's team. The same thing was going on in the number 6. So he's already been there. He had some ownership stake, although he probably didn't have anything to do with the day-to-day operations. So it's kind of, if that happens, it's going back to what we saw previously.
Okay, well, I'm going to let's take a break here and give a shout out to our supporters at Shell Gasolines. I did put up a question this week to try to spur some comment on Facebook and Twitter and such. And the question was, why can Dale Earnhardt Jr. win the Cup, and why can't he? So I'm kind of giving the Earnhardt bipolars a chance to attack each other. Hopefully that will generate some interesting comments. I think we'll probably get like 80% why he can, and 20% less that he can't. But what do you guys think? I mean, can Junior win the championship? Do you think? Are he and Letarte that is connected enough this year to pull it off?
It's going to be tough for him to win the championship out from his teammate, because Jeff Gordon is the know-all, be-all, heir apparent to a championship this year, so that he can retire and go away.
In the past, Earnhardt hasn't been consistent enough to win a championship with the current format. This year, I think the challenge is going to be that he doesn't win consistently enough to make it past round 2. Consistency is going to get you through round 1. Wins are going to get you through round 2 and 3, and then you got to run well at Homestead to win the championship. So I would say it's a stretch, but 3 wins this year, it's the best since whenever he had the multiple wins, 8 wins or whatever, way back there. If he gets another win in the next 4 or 5 races, then I would probably change my opinion and say, yeah, he's capable of winning on any given Sunday. But right now, I don't, and I feel the same way about Jeff Gordon. Jeff Gordon can't win consistently enough, I think, to make it through either the second or third round. I think he's run well enough probably to make it to the second round, because you'll get a number of points contenders going to that. But I don't think he's going to be one of the final 4 at Homestead. So those are going to be drivers who can pull a win out of the hat. Jimmy Johnson, Brad Keselowski, maybe Kyle Busch, maybe if he gets a little lucky. So Earnhardt, no.
Carl Edwards, maybe.
Carl Edwards, we got Phoenix in that final 3 races. I think that's going to be Edwards' best chance to win. So.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think he does have a very good chance he being Dale Earnhardt Jr. has a very good chance of winning a championship, and it's just, that would be one of those things, those perfect endings for NASCAR, and to see Junior beat 3 other drivers in that final race, I mean, that would go into the NASCAR Disneyland ride thing. So I can definitely see it happening. I think if he gets into that final race, I'm picking Junior. So.
Well, I think it's a possibility. I mean, it'd be a great way for ESPN to go out, seeing as ESPN owned by ABC, which was owned by Disney for a while. See, you got the absolute connection. So it could work.
All right. Well, you want to do that read for our friends at Shell, and then we'll.
Oh, sure. Yeah, like I have that read with me, but you can win a $50 Shell gift card just by giving us your comment of the day. Go to our Facebook page or any of those kind of places. Leave the comment. If we like it, we'll give you that $50 Shell gift card. And, of course, if Joey Logano were to win a race the rest of the season, anybody who has a Shell Saver card, you can save 22 cents per gallon on Shell diesel and or Shell nitrogen-enriched gasolines Wednesday after the race.
There you go. Okay.
Limited 25 gallons. Don't forget that part.
All right. Very well done. All right. Good job. Okay. So we're down to about 7 minutes left in the show, and I think it's time to talk a little bit of fantasy racing and predictions for the second road course race of the Sprint Cup season. My favorite one at Watkins Glen this coming week. So we're going to turn it over to the NASCAR fantasy racing guru. That would be Dan the Man Beaver.
Watkins Glen is another one of those opportunity races, so you get a chance to pick drivers you wouldn't normally pick. In this case, I don't think it means road ringers like it did in the past, for a while anyway, although they do have some added significance down in Group C because you really can't pick Dillon or Larson for these races because that means you waste them on the unrestricted intermediate speedways where they've run so well. So I think you've got to look at Watkins Glen on its own or on its own with Sonoma. The two tracks are remarkably different for people who have road racing skills. Sonoma is a technical track. Watkins Glen is a fast track, and that makes a difference for some drivers. I think it makes a difference for a driver like Brad Keselowski, who likes to go really deep into the corners, and he enters the race with 3 consecutive second-place finishes. It makes a difference for a Kyle Busch, who's been much better here than he's been at Sonoma for that same reason. He can attack the corners a little more aggressively than you can at Sonoma and not give up as much exiting the corner. So you're looking for when the records don't match up, why don't they match up, and does that make the driver a good choice? For the most part, though, when you spend half your time with 2 wheels off in the dirt, it really doesn't matter if it's a technical course or a fast track. It's a road course race, and I think that's how most of the racers look at this. So you get to Group A. I think probably the best road course racer in stock cars and NASCAR stock cars there's ever been is Jeff Gordon. But he's one of those drivers who has performed so much better on the technical Sonoma course than the fast Watkins Glen course, in part because of all the insanity that's going on around him. He tends to back out when he gets into those situations. You don't make that room back up. If he doesn't back out, the other driver tends to wreck around him. And if you're in the garage, you don't make those positions back up. So let's ignore Gordon, let's ignore Johnson because he's going to be good in the chase and because they're trying too many wild things with their tires. And I think your 2 picks in Group A would be Kyle Busch for that. He likes to be aggressive. He likes to attack the corners. He's good at Watkins Glen where he's not good at Sonoma. And hopefully that will keep some other players from taking him. He enters the week with an 8-race top 10 streak. 8-race, yes. 8-race top 10 streak, an average of 5th in that span of races. And the only time he's ever performed badly was in his inaugural attempt back in 2005. Clint Bowyer is another really good road course racer that you don't always think about, although that's changing quite a bit. He's got 4 top 11 finishes in his last 5 attempts at Watkins Glen. So you've got a couple of drivers that you normally wouldn't necessarily think about them. Group A, it's a lot easier to spread the allocations around, but you're probably going to catch someone by surprise with either. Well, probably with Bowyer. You're probably not going to catch him too much by surprise with Kyle Busch. Anybody other than that, avoid. There's really not very good records to report in the Group A drivers, mostly because we've had some solid Group B drivers like Marcus Ambrose, A.J. Allmendinger, that have captured some of those top 10 positions in the last few years and kept the marquee drivers from performing that well. So those are your 2 choices in A. Drop down to B. Ambrose, up until he crashed last year in that final restart or next to last restart, whichever one it was, he had what was probably NASCAR's perfect streak of top 3 finishes during his career. 5 top 3 finishes, the last 2 of which were victories. You got to think that last year's struggles, and it really was a struggle. He wasn't running all that well before he caved his tire in. Got off sequence on his pit strategy. He was not going to finish in the top 5 unless there was a miracle. He tried to make the miracle and didn't make it. But I think he'll rebound. They tested there between Indy and Pocono, so Ambrose is definitely the top pick there. Allmendinger is probably that second pick. He's had incredibly strong runs in the Nationwide Series. He's never finished worse than 13th in 5 races at Watkins Glen. So this is his best opportunity to win a race. And JT Giardi has got to be putting at least as many resources behind him potentially winning a race as Richard Petty Motorsports is for Ambrose. Those are probably your two best picks there, but you got to fill up your roster with some other people. Martin Truex Jr. is probably my third pick. We've got him with a 3-race top 10 streak entering the week, a 4-race top 15 streak, and 5 top 10s in his last 7 Watkins Glen races. So consistent. Communication isn't quite there. They didn't do as well at Sonoma as I hoped they would, but 6 races have passed since then. So Keselowski's another driver that isn't on your roster every week, should be for Watkins Glen. And Keselowski, I think, rounds it off with his 3 top 2 finishes. You might go ahead and use an allocation even there, knowing that he's going to run well in the unrestricted intermediate speedways. Because if he finishes in that second, third, first range again, he's going to earn maximum points. Drop down to Group C, and it gets a little more difficult. By the numbers, Austin Dillon should be the top pick, but you really don't want to put him on your roster just in case something happens. You know he's going to be better on unrestricted speedways. Danica Patrick has the road racing skill, but hasn't had the performance, consistent performance. However, she's finished on the lead lap in all of her Cup starts. She's been much better in Cup competition than nationwide competition, and I think there's a reason for that. You go back to the Nationwide series, and the skill level is much more uneven than it is at Cup. You've either got drivers who are really good, road racing specialists, or you've got drivers that are really aggressive. And she's not used to driving around people with that kind of erratic behavior. Once she got to Cup, the drivers are a little more consistent. Her results improved. And she's got an average finish of 22nd, puts her on the cusp of being a good value in Group C. But she's also improved in every race that she started on a road course. From 29th last June at Sonoma to 20th at the Glen last year to 18th this year in Sonoma. So she's showing improvement, and she might be the driver that you want to start. Michael McDowell could be one of the biggest sleepers of the week, though. His Grand Am performances or background makes him a really good road course racer. He's won a couple of nationwide races in the last couple of years. That number 95 team's not showing up very often, but when they do, they're actually putting in a pretty good effort. And I think he finished in the mid-20s, 24th at Sonoma. So if he finishes 24th, he's not going to earn the most points, but he's going to be close enough that he makes the allocation management play come into effect. Beyond him, the driver that might be the best value, the best differentiator in Group C is Casey Mears. He's got solid top 15 finishes. He's done incredibly well, but as of right now, he's only on 2% of the rosters. So if you really want to roll the dice, put Casey Mears on your team. Hope that they get the strategy right at the end, and he could be the top performing Group C driver. If not, he could be at least as close as Michael McDowell, AJ Allmendinger, and pull out an upset of a sorts. And an upset for him would be a top 10 finish.
Yeah, I like that Casey Mears call there. I think that could be a good pick if I were playing a Yahoo game. I think that would be my C pick this week. Okay, I just sent a text to Beth Ann to see if we can get her pick from her, so we'll give that till last. I'm going to go first. I'm riding Dan's advice this week. My gut feeling was to take Alligator Meat, but I'm going to go with AJ Allmendinger to win this week. Steve, who do you like?
Well, I took Marcus Ambrose last week for the big upset at Pocono. That didn't happen, so I can't not take him this week. Marcus Ambrose to get in the chase.
All right, Marcus Ambrose. Dan, who's your pick?
I think Keselowski becomes the bride, stops being the bridesmaid this week. So I'm going to go with Kez.
He is solidly due, that's for sure. I still haven't heard back from Beth Ann, but I will. I'll put her pick up on Facebook when I get that, so that she's on record. Because I know Dan's keeping track of this stuff now, so we can't all pull our normal. Hey, I picked that guy last week. Deal. So, any final comments this week on This Week in NASCAR on pit road style?
Well, I don't think we need to gloss over last week's picks because I won. So I had Jeff Gordon. He was the highest finisher there. So Kane for Charlie and Beth. So good top 10 finish for him. But
And Steve had Ambrose. And where did old Wallbait finish?
where did he finish?
I think he was out of the top 45, wasn't he?
Okay, so we'll do better this week. I think all those picks look pretty good this week. So they'll finish 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Okay, that's it for this edition of our live NASCAR Hangout on Pit Row every week. We'll be back next week, hopefully normal time. Hopefully these guys will be in more comfortable surroundings. I know they're both probably dying right now to get out of this thing, so they go someplace where there's some air, or in Steve's case, turn the ignition on in his car so they can turn the air back on, and the apparently the trash compactor setting on his powered driver's seat memory system. So thanks everybody. Follow Steve on Twitter at Bench Racing, me at On Pit Road, Dan at Fantasy Race, Beth Ann at My Metro Toledo, and come back and see us next week and watch the replay. Leave us comments on our Facebook page on pitrow.com and on Pit Row on Yahoo, YouTube. So that's it for this week. Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.